Work-life balance, what is it? It's very complicated. A lot of people don't understand all the things that factor into work-life balance. So I brought this little demonstration to just put things into perspective. Over here we have life, and life is about relationships, which are family, siblings, spouse, significant other, children. It's about health, it's about finance, it's about hobbies. And then over here we have work. So in work there's always finance, job responsibilities, co-workers, superiors. And if you're an owner, you have a huge financial obligation, you have employees, you also have relationships, and you have customers. So there are so many things that factor in that can offset one another and make the balance difficult. As you can see, you're never going to be 100% in balance. We talk about leaving work at work and home at home, but it's very difficult to do. My name is Peggy Caruso, and this is my advice. I've been doing this a long time. I'm an executive and personal development coach. I'm an author of 4 books that have been trademarked through the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I have my own podcast. I've been on TV, radio, podcast, and magazine around the United States. And why do I tell you that story? Because it just sounds like all success. But a lot of people will say, like, well, what do you know and how can you teach this because you have reached that success, owning 8 businesses and being successful. But it wasn't always like that. My story is trying. It's sad. Back when I graduated from high school, I wanted to go to college, but I couldn't go at the last minute because of financial reasons. So I got a job and I saved for it. And when I was 21, I got pregnant with my daughter. So by the age of 24, I had 2 children. So I knew that I was going to have to do my education on the side, which was very difficult. The father of my children gave them up, so I raised them on $7.50 an hour, trying to figure out, what am I going to do? I'm going to climb this corporate ladder. I'm going to get my education. I've got to take care of my children. I'm still making only $7.50 an hour. I better start thinking about becoming an entrepreneur, but how am I going to do that? I'm a girl from a small town. I was in and out of some abusive relationships, so why was I choosing those types of people? I had to start figuring out me and discovering, what's going on with me. So all of that factored in to the work-life balance. My son, when he was born, had a life-threatening illness, so that really put me out of balance. I got my education on the side, like I said, trying to climb the corporate ladder. I started to make some really good money. I ventured out and started to own my own business. And then after I had a nice nest egg, I lost my life savings. I continued down the path to rebuild my empire, and my sister took her life, which was very hard. I lost my life savings again, but rebuilt again. And 4 years later, my father passed away, and it tore my family apart. It tore me apart from my family, except for my mom and my children. So the reason I tell you that story is because so many of those things factored in to my work-life balance, and I feel like that's what makes me an expert in trying to help people today. What happened was, and what people don't realize about work-life balance, is time and stress go along with that. So all of these things factored in on the stress level, and I had a health issue down the road. I woke up one day and I couldn't walk. I couldn't get up off of the floor without someone helping pick me up. I couldn't do stairs. I couldn't even do one stair. So I went to multiple doctors. No one knew what was wrong with me. They did all kinds of testing, and I ended up in Cleveland Clinic with an amazing neurologist. He's amazing. And between what he did and I did, I'm 80 to 90% better. So that's why I tell you the importance of time and stress and work-life balance. If you go back to my story, I'll just give you one example. My son had a life-threatening illness in which he spent kindergarten and first grade in the hospital. So he was in an oxygen tent, and it was very difficult because I started a new job, and I had to get up in the morning, get my little girl ready, pack her lunch and get everything ready, find a babysitter who could get her on the bus. Then I'd go to the hospital to see my son. Then I'd go to work. And then on my lunch break, I'd go back to the hospital. And then after work, I'd go back to the hospital. Then I'd drive 20 minutes home and get my daughter bath and do homework and do all of the things that you're supposed to do, have someone stay with her, and then go back to the hospital and tuck my son in and go back and go to sleep. So in 2 years, that's a lot of stress, and that throws me out of balance. So the first issue that I realized in all that was the lack of communication I had with my superior, my boss. Okay, I was an introvert and I was afraid to even say anything. So when the hospital would call, I'd have to leave. I almost lost my job. So that's why effective communication is key in work-life balance. The other thing is I started a restaurant. That was my first big entrepreneurial experience that I knew nothing about. So I worked that for 6 years, seven days a week, going to bed at 11 o'clock at night, getting up at 3:30, never missing a day's work, never having a day off, and having teenagers. So you want to talk about how my life went like that. So you have to get it back in order. And so that's why I told you my story, because there are so many things in there that factor into the work-life balance and the time and stress. So what is my answer for you? I could give you 100 tips on how to do work-life balance, especially at work, and what you do with disgruntled coworkers and negativity in the workforce, and how you guard yourself against all that. So I'm just going to touch on some things that I hope that you can take away today that are going to be beneficial for your own work-life balance and time and stress. As I mentioned, the effective communication is huge. You have to communicate with your coworkers. You have to communicate with your boss. If you are the owner, you have to communicate with your employees. And it's in a productive way. If someone makes you angry, there's a way to effectively communicate your point without being mean. I talk a lot about goal setting. Every one of you should have a goal, a personal goal and a professional goal, a short-term goal and a long-term goal, because goals define who you are. It's your map, it's your GPS that's going to take you from here to here and help you so that you don't fall out of balance. What's a good goal? What if I want $1 billion or $1 million, or what if I just want $100,000? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what someone else thinks. The bigger the goal, the more challenging, and it's fun. Make it realistic in the way that what's it going to take for me to get to that? I don't think, when people say, oh, that's crazy that person wants $1 billion. What would you do with all that money? It's kind of like when you say, well, what makes, I want to be happy. Well, what makes you happy? What makes one person happy might not necessarily make someone else happy. So when you're goal setting, if you want $1 billion, what are you going to do with it? Like, I'm somebody that I believe money is a good thing. We have limiting beliefs where a lot of people think money is the root of all evil. No, it isn't. You can't do good without money. But you got to start thinking about a legacy and a purpose and what you want to do with that money if you do get it. How can you make a difference in this world? I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called the Dash, and it changed my life forever. That was one of the things that changed my life, is the Dash, when you're born and when you pass. But what happens in the Dash? And I was like, oh, I need to find a legacy. I need to, so I wanted to start an orphanage, and I started writing books because I wanted the proceeds to go to an orphanage. But there were so many legal issues in the state of Pennsylvania that I now just help out an orphanage in India, and there are 400 little children, and every opportunity I get to help them, I do. So what is your legacy? And maybe that's something you should think about as well. Something I learned along the way that is a key thing that I would like to share with you is masterminding. I was fortunate enough, I don't know if any of you know who Bob Proctor is, but he's world renowned, and he just recently passed away, which saddens my heart. But he became a friend, and he endorsed all of my books. And he taught me the importance of masterminding with like-minded people. All successful people in life, they journal and they mastermind. And it's putting yourself with like-minded people so that you can work together in harmony. Just remember this, the 5 people that you hang around the most is who you become. If you hang around with negative people, you will become negative. If you hang around with successful people, you will become successful. I'm living proof of that. The next one is setting boundaries and learning to say no. Those are not bad things, and they're not about the other person. They're about you and to protect you and your well-being. So those are two things that go hand in hand that are really amazing. The other thing is put yourself in your to-do list. People tend to worry about everybody else and everything else, especially women who are focused and the main providers for their children and trying to hold down a job. It's very difficult. Just even being a stay-at-home is probably even more difficult. I did that for a year, so I understand that. But putting yourself first is very important, or putting yourself on your to-do list. You don't even have to put yourself first. But you have to find ways to release some of the pressures of life. Life is short. And the one that I like to talk about a lot is when you're on your way home from work, wind down, slow down, calm down, wind down. Try to do what I talked about in the beginning of leave work at work and home at home. So I call it invite yourself to dinner. It's something that I think is extremely important. When you get home, put your technology away. Make your children and your spouse and anyone who's there, put your technology off of the table. Don't talk about your difficulties at work. You can talk about work if you talk about something positive, and it's okay to ask everybody how their day was. Keep your children focused. Figure out what's going on with your children, who they're hanging around with, what are they doing, what do they love to do, what's making them happy, and are they happy? So I like invite yourself to dinner. I think it's amazing. And the same goes when you go to work. Leave home at home. If you and your spouse or your children or somebody is having a disagreement, leave it at home and try to, when you get in your car to drive to work, use that for your mental well-being time to get yourself so that you can be the best that you can be at work. The next one is to eliminate negativity. Negativity is hard to eliminate when you are surrounded by it, but try really hard to turn things to positive, because we are made up of energy, and what you put out is what you give back. If you put out positive, you will get positive back. If you put out negative, you're going to get negative back. So try to eliminate negativity. And the last point for today is laugh. If you don't have laughter, you don't have health. You will be more successful. You will be more relaxed. Laughter is key. So if you do something wrong, don't be hard on yourself. Laugh about it. So I hope I've helped you with some work balance and time and stress tips. Thank you very much.